Hey everyone, welcome back. We're excited to hear from a couple agents or parts of the Department of Commerce. We have speakers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, as well as the National Telecommunications and Infrastructure Administration, or NTIA. So I'll just give a little bit of their bios and then I'll pass it over to them. So from NOAA, we have Eric Locklear. Eric Locklear currently works as the Senior Advisor to the NOAA Undersecretary for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, sometimes referred to as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act. A longtime federal career civil servant, Mr. Locklear has over 30 years of federal service working as an administrative professional in various roles. Working closely with the White House executive offices and Department of Commerce senior policy officials, Mr. Locklear's current responsibilities include coordinating NOAA's infrastructure law and IRA policy and implementation across its business operations. A longtime native of Virginia, Eric grew up in Western Virginia. He earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in business from Virginia Tech, as well as a Master's of Business Administration from Johns Hopkins University. An avid outdoorsman, Eric enjoys all things outside. Thanks, Eric. And I will go ahead and read Nick's as well. Nick Alexander is the Senior Policy Advisor in NTIA's Office of Internet Connectivity and Growth. Prior to joining OICG in January 2022, Nick was a partner at a boutique telecommunications law firm in Washington, D.C., the head of federal regulatory affairs for a large carrier, and an attorney at the Federal Communications Commission, where he held various positions in the Wireline Competition Bureau and served as a legal advisor to 3 members of the commission. Prior to earning his JD from the University of Colorado School of Law, Nick served as an airborne infantry officer in the U.S. Army. Thanks to both of you. We're really excited to hear from Commerce today, and I will pass it over to you for some presentations. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate very much the opportunity to be here. Eric and I drew straws earlier today and decided that I would go first. Now we get to see whether I am talented enough to share my screen. We're working?
Looks good.
So, great. I, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. In my capacity as the Senior Policy Advisor in the Office of Internet Connectivity and Growth, I had the opportunity to work on 3 of the notices of funding opportunity that were generated under our responsibilities in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and I continue to get the opportunity to advise our program offices as they move through the process of executing these grant programs. I like to start these presentations with a quote from President Biden, which I won't read to you, but it emphasizes the importance of broadband, and in particular the broadband deployment activities that are funded under IIJA and that are administered by NTIA and the Office of Internet Connectivity and Growth. So under the Infrastructure Act, NTIA is responsible for about $48 billion worth of broadband grant funding, which is administered through 4 programs. I will briefly describe them here, and then we'll get into the details. The first, and the one that people have heard the most about, is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. It's a $42.45 billion program, which is focused primarily on ensuring that all households in the United States have access to affordable high-speed internet. Second program, which is actually a set of 3 programs, is our Digital Equity Program, $2.75 billion, focused on allowing states to develop and execute plans to ensure that traditionally unserved and underserved communities are able to take advantage of the networks that the BEAD program is going to be deploying. And there's also a program that NTIA will directly administer to help fill the gaps. The third bucket of funding was an additional tranche of $2 billion for the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, which was originally created under the Consolidated Appropriations Act. And then the final program is the Middle Mile Program, $1 billion for enabling middle mile broadband infrastructure. It's worth noting that NTIA is not the only agency that was tasked with broadband activities under the Infrastructure Act. The FCC got $14.2 billion for the Affordable Connectivity Program, which replaced the Emergency Broadband Benefit. USDA was given $2 billion to administer through the Rural Utilities Service and the Reconnect program. And then state and local governments had a $0.6 billion authorization for private activity bonds. The BEAD program, again, the focus of this program is to ensure that all households in the United States have access to an affordable high-speed internet connection. The way that this program is structured, the eligible entities, the eligible applicants are the 50 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, and then the other U.S. territories, the USVI, Guam, American Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Eligible uses for these funds include planning for deployment of internet networks, deploying or upgrading internet networks, installing internet and multi-tenant buildings, implementing adoption and digital equity programs, and then workforce and job training. The key focus of this program is deployment. Every state has submitted a letter of interest to the FCC, pardon me, submitted a letter of interest to NTIA and is currently participating in the program. Each state, including Oregon, has established a state broadband office that is responsible for administering the state's responsibilities under the program. And we're working very closely with those states through our federal program officers. In the case of Oregon, a guy named Eric Forsch, who is excellent, to help them get prepared for the tasks that lie in front of them. Oregon and other states are currently in the process of drafting a 5-year plan for internet deployment and access in the state. NTIA will on June 30th allocate the $42.45 billion among the 56 eligible entities, which will create a budget and trigger the opportunity for Oregon and other states to submit an initial proposal that will explain how Oregon intends to spend the BEAD funds that have been allocated to them. Oregon will then be required to conduct a challenge process to identify the universe of unserved and underserved locations that are going to get service under the BEAD program. That universe of locations is initially identified through the use of the FCC's new broadband availability map, or the national broadband map, but will also include a challenge process that the state itself runs. And then once that challenge process is run, the state will select subgrantees through a competitive process who will be obligated to deploy broadband to every unserved and underserved location in Oregon. When we talk about the type of broadband that is required, the download speed must be 100 megabits per second or faster. The upload speeds have to be 20 megabits per second or faster, and latency has to be less than or equal to 100 milliseconds. The ISPs and other entities that are selected to build out these networks will have approximately 4 years to build out these networks after they are selected. So this is a process that is going to be taking some period of time, but we are looking forward to the allocation process that will start on June 30th, in which will kick off the process of identifying the universe of locations that will be eligible for service within Oregon and other jurisdictions, and the process of identifying ISPs who are going to build out these networks. The second program that is being administered by NTIA is the Digital Equity Programs. It's actually 3 programs. The one that is currently underway is a state planning grant program. Oregon and other states are all participating and received an allocation from a $60 million formula to allow the state to develop a digital equity plan. Once that digital equity plan is developed, and you can see the timeline at the bottom, the state will be able to come back and seek funding out of a $1.44 billion bucket of funding to implement that state digital equity plan. And then NTIA will, subsequent to the state capacity grant program, implement a direct grant program called the competitive grant program, where it will have $1.25 billion to distribute to nonprofits and municipalities who are not participating in the state plans but have other activities that are designed to promote digital equity and inclusion. The third program that NTIA is administering is the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program. The total funding available in that program is $3 billion. Over $1 billion of that has already been allocated. An additional $2 billion was allocated in the Infrastructure Act. The Tribal Broadband Connectivity Plan has been working very hard to work with the eligible tribal entities to identify 2 different kinds of projects. Some of them are access and inclusion projects, and the other kind are infrastructure projects. The tribes have been submitting applications for both kinds of projects, and the Tribal Broadband Connectivity program team has been receiving, reviewing, and issuing awards for those applications. We expect a notice of funding opportunity for a second round of funding to come out in the not terribly distant future. The final program that NTIA administers is the Middle Mile Grant Program. This is the grant program that is farthest along. Applications for that program were due in September of last year. And as you can see from the timeline, we said that we would start issuing awards no earlier than March 1st. We've clearly passed that, but we do expect to start issuing awards in the not terribly distant future. We had $1 billion available for that grant program, and we had over $5 billion in applications for different middle mile programs. So it's been a very competitive process, and we're looking forward to issuing those awards. If you have additional questions about any of these grant programs, the first place to stop is the internetforall.gov. That is a website that identifies all of the OICG administered grant programs, as well as other grant programs that are available to promote broadband deployment in the states. Strongly encourage you to engage with your state broadband office. If you need the contact information, there is actually a map at internetforall.gov where you can click on Oregon and it will pop up the contact information for your state broadband office, and also give you the contact information for Eric Forsch, the federal program officer from NTIA, who is working with the state. You can submit questions to internetforall@ntia.gov, or there are program-specific email addresses that are identified on that website if you have specific questions about the Middle Mile program or BEAD. And then NTIA will continue to conduct outreach activities like this one, and also conduct its own webinars and program-specific application guidance webinars for applicants. So again, appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about the work that we're doing, and look forward to continuing to work with Oregon to ensure that all of the residents have access to high-speed, affordable internet. Thank you. Eric, I will hand it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And let me go ahead and get started. Share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? So someone give me a thumbs up.
We can see it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.
So it's great to be here. My name is Eric Locklear, and I work at the Department of Commerce. I work with NOAA, and I am, hold on just one second. Let me just make one quick change here. Before I get going. Okay, so can you still see my screen? Good to go?
No, can you reshare it, please?
Of course, of course. Can you see?
We can see something, but if you're able to maximize the slide, that'd be great.
Of course, I've been here all day waiting for this. And
Yes, you've been ready. All right, we're good.
We're good. So anyway, yes, so let's start over. So my name is Eric Locklear, and I joined in earlier today. So I've been listening to many of the conversations that have been taking place. And one of the themes that I've heard throughout the day is that these are transformational funds that have been provided to the agencies, and it truly is. And so what I'm going to get to do is to show you why at NOAA it's transformational, and what and what we're expecting to accomplish with the funds that we've been given. So here's the introduction. I will go through what I affectionately call the bluff, and then I'll talk a little bit about our bill implementation plan, and then our IRA implementation plan, and then leave some time for questions. So that's what we're going to go through. So the bottom line up front. So bluff was a term I had learned when I came to here, and I like it because this is the 10th presentation of 11 today that you've heard, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just give them what the bottom line is right up front. So if you remember nothing more today, you remember the next couple of slides. So at NOAA, the bipartisan infrastructure law provided $2.96 billion to us for 5 years, and then some months later, the Inflation Reduction Act provided an additional $3.3 billion over 5 years, for a total of $6.3 billion over 5 years. Now, that might not sound like a lot compared to some of the other agencies, but to us, it is huge. This $6.3 billion is effectively doubles the size of our budget. Our budget is normally $6 billion in a single year, appropriation year. And so with these funds, we were actually got 100% increase over 5 years to be able to inject and infuse some exciting projects all across the United States. So we're very excited about that. My second comment that I want to make is you also heard a lot today about all of the opportunities, the grant opportunities, and especially the contract opportunities that are going to be made available. But there are a couple websites that I wanted to put out right up front, so that if you ever want to find out what is taking place across the federal landscape, these are the first two websites here you can go to. So grants.gov, grants.gov is a government-wide portal for all grant opportunities. So every department that you've heard from today, every federal agency that you've heard from today, when we have a grant opportunity that we want to make available to the public, we have to use this website. So you can go in there as a stakeholder and you can sign up to receive alerts regarding those particular opportunities that you are very interested in. So you will never miss out. So I want you all to feel like you have an opportunity, that just because you may have a colleague or a friend who didn't come to this presentation, or you feel like you can't quite get the latest and greatest information from the agency, always go to these websites and you'll be able to get the latest and greatest information. So grants.gov is the federal government-wide portal for all things grants. Similarly, sam.gov is the web portal for all things acquisition. So if you ever want to feel like you want to get access to the latest information, government-wide, every federal agency and every department uses this portal, then you'll be able to do that and go on sam.gov. Again, you'll be able to set up a profile, and it will email you automatically opportunities that come up. Thirdly, NOAA, we have our own BIL website, and here it is. So if you want to drill down specifically, if you're interested just in NOAA, you can come to our website, and this is our website here. We will also have an accompanying website for IRA. It is not posted yet, so we are working on that, and we still have some planning to go on how we're going to roll out our IRA program offerings. And then lastly, I wanted to make available to you the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. This is a government private partnership that we, NOAA, as well as many other federal agencies, participate in. NOAA, we provide money to the National Fish and Wildlife Federation through the National Coastal Resilience Fund. This website also, while it's not part of the grants, it's more of a private enterprise. They have a lot of grant opportunities using federal funds. And so while it doesn't go through the federal portal process, you can go on this process here, and you can also apply for a grant funding. So the bottom line up front were these two items. So it's a big dollars for NOAA. It doubles the size of our budget over 5 years, and we're excited about it. And if you remember nothing else, go to those top 2 websites and you'll be able to have access to all of the latest information government-wide. Now, so I wanted to start there. Now let me dig a little deeper into what these 2 specific laws mean to NOAA, because they were structured very differently and we have to implement them very differently. The BIL was a little different than what IRA is. While it may be transparent to you, but to us, it's very, very different. So let me go ahead and talk about BIL right now. So we received $2.96 billion, and it was across 18 provisions. So if you look at the law that was signed if you look at the bill that was signed into law by President Biden, there were 18 provisions across 3 main groupings. And so the first main grouping is climate data and services. And you can see there, we got $904 million to support the whole of government effort to address the climate crisis by getting critical information into the hands of decision makers. So that's our overall objective for that particular group of BIL funding. We also had almost $1.5 billion for our climate ready coast, and it's helping the coastal communities build the future that you want to see, including natural infrastructure investments to increase resilience to climate change and extreme weather events. So we have a lot of grant opportunities there for coastal communities to participate in: habitat restoration, marine debris removal, and then through our coastal zone management in our NEARS programs. We also have $592 million set aside just for fisheries and protected resources. And so for those constituency groups out there, especially in Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, we're advancing efforts to support environmental stewardship and promote community economic development. Now, these were the big program offerings. I will tell you, and this is the monies that were set aside, but actually let me go back here. So the climate ready coasts and the fisheries and protected resources, those 2 program groupings, those are very grant oriented. And we had major rollouts soliciting grants, and we're just coming to the very end of our year 1 implementation. I know it's taken quite a long time, but we had announced last June. Many of the grant opportunities were posted last June, and it's taken us almost a year to go through all of those applications that we received, and then we're getting to the point where we're now almost ready to make awards. And some of the key things that we've learned over the past year in our year 1 of this implementation is that there is a lot of demand for this type of program. So we're getting almost a 13-to-1 request for project proposal with the dollars that we have to spend. So we've been looking at ways in which we can make that lower that rate so that there's more money to be able to be made available to the grant opportunities. So so that's what's taking place in bill. And I did talk about here where this was the overview of all of our bill funding here in 5 years. So just so one other point I wanted to make, we're just coming to the end of FY22 offering. We have 4 more years to go. So if you didn't make an application last time, there certainly is an opportunity that'll be coming up this year. And we hope to have, it's March now, we hope to have the remaining grant announcements out by the end of June. So that's what we're pushing for. But again, go on that grant.gov website and have and create a profile so that it'll automatically extend to you when we have the opening, because they are open on a rolling basis. It's not like a certain date and time. We do get them posted in accordance with how the program wants to do it. But you can see here, this is a good snapshot of the types of things that we're funding in each of these sections. So in climate data and services, you'll see we have flood and inundation mapping, we have wildfire, soil moisture and snowpack, we have ocean and coastal observing systems, regional ocean partnerships, we have our high performance computing. So there's lots of great stuff in that section. We also have in the climate ready coast, that's where I was talking about, we have the NIFWIF grants up top. We have habitat restoration, marine debris, and our CZM and NEARS programs. And then lastly, of course, we have our fish passage in our Pacific Coast Salmon Recovery Fund. So that's what's taking place in bill. It's very prescribed. You can see when I say prescribed, there are 18 provisions. There are 5 years. We can't take money from one provision and give it to another provision and vice versa. So that's why it's a very prescribed way in which we have to go about implementing this program. So let me talk a little bit about our IRA implementation. IRA was very different, although we got more money to do that, but we have the monies that we received in IRA fall into 3 basic program groupings. Our first one is Climate Ready Coasts, and it's the biggest one. It's $2.6 billion. I highlighted there in blue the actual language that was in the bill that was signed into law for what we are going to accomplish. This program, at NOAA, our IRA implementation is still under discussion. We are still working very hard to get all of this planned out so that we can get these get this program implemented. And so you're not gonna see very much information about this publicly just yet. This is probably the most that has been put out. Again, like I said, we have our website that we are working on, but it has not been made public yet. But our big number one grouping will be for the conservation, restoration, and protection of coastal and marine habitats, resources, Pacific salmon, and you can read that there. It's exciting. We're also going to help coastal communities to prepare for extreme storms and changing climate conditions. So there's a lot that is in there. There is a lot that is in there. In our number 2 program grouping, this is more weather and extreme event oriented. So we're going to be spending monies in research to accelerate advances and improvements in these areas, from modeling, forecasting, and disseminating climate information to the public. So that's what we're working on there. This is building out the climate ready nation in our bucket number 2. And so that's what we're working on there. And then we have a third opportunity here. Our third bucket is what we would call, it truly is infrastructure. So in this case, it is the facilities, HPC, and aircraft. And what that means is we did get funding, $510 million for our marine sanctuary facilities to get those retrofitted. We did get funding, $190 million a year for high performance computing. And we got $200 million for facilities, as you can see. We also got, and I can't see the very bottom, but there should be, we got funding for a new Hurricane Hunter, a G550. So we'll be working on that procurement. So again, these are on this particular section and in this particular grouping, it's acquisition. It's going to be more acquisition heavy. The first 2 buckets that you see here, these are more grant heavy. So that's why, again, I showed you those 2 websites at the very beginning so that you can always stay abreast of what is taking place. So I think that is about it for NOAA. And I don't know if there are any questions that have been submitted in writing, but.
Hey everyone, yeah, I don't see any questions at the moment, but just as a reminder to participants, while our webinar currently doesn't enable audio for Q&A, we welcome any Q&A in the Q&A box here. And if questions don't come in the next couple minutes here, we'll still take questions and we'll work with the agencies to get back to you. There is a request for you to leave the last slide up, if that's something you could do, Eric.
Put the last slide up?
Yes.
Yes, I can. In fact, I have also pulled up each of the websites. So I have those so if people want to see what those are. But let me go ahead and get the last slide put back up. Not this one. You mean the this was my last slide. You mean my bottom line up front slides?
I think the last slide, that's all the comment says. So,
okay.
But we'll work with the agencies or the departments to post relevant material. So hopefully we can make this accessible to all of you, but we'll make sure we share NOAA resources.
Yeah, this is all public information. It's all when I can easily provide this to you, and you can make it available to the constituency out there in Oregon. No problem.
Great. Yep, we're collecting information to post on our website. As a reminder for folks that haven't heard, currently we do have on Senator Wyden's website under the services menu item, we have a few resources already, but we will be updating those after today's webinar with all of the great material that we've collected from our presenters.
And since I had just a couple minutes left, I had pulled these up just in case. And here's the grants.gov website, folks. So really, go on this website. It's great information. You don't have to rely on personal contacts in a federal agency or any of that. You can get this information. We make this available to you. So here's our grants website. Here is the acquisition website. You can go on here and get great information about many contract opportunities. In fact, NOAA's already posted an IRA contract opportunity for a facility because it is a long planning time. So you can go on there. There is also our own website I have here. I pulled up. So if you want to just see, if you want to drill down on what NOAA is doing, here's our website. Again, it's available. It's got great information there. We're going to have success stories and storyboards, and that's going to be great. So you can see the before and after in specific communities of how the IRA and the bill investments have paid off. And then lastly, I believe I have the NIFWIF one, and here it is. So if you go on the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation website, I drilled down to the NOAA slide, but they have, if you go to their homepage, they have partnerships with a plethora. I mean, I couldn't believe how many partnerships they have with. So it's not just federal dollars. You can get state dollars. You can get corporate sponsorship dollars. Exciting time. So can't say enough about what's available. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, all those are super good resources. So thanks so much for making sure you walked through them. Seeing no more questions. Oh, Joanne Gordon. Okay. This is an unrelated question, but I'll address it now. Joanne, we have your email address based on your registration. So we'll make sure to get back to you. But in terms of commerce questions, any concluding remarks from the two of you? I really appreciate the time and the information you've shared.
Appreciate the opportunity to participate and encourage everybody to engage with their state broadband office as we start to roll out these programs.
Great. All right. Well, thank you both. I really appreciate it. And Joanne will work to answer your question after the webinar. Thanks, everyone. We have one more session left, starting in about 10 minutes. Alice Lynn is a senior tax policy advisor, and she'll be presenting on some of the energy tax credits. So look forward to seeing you all then for the last session. Thanks, everyone.